What is going on, everybody? It's your boy, SnowBikeMike, welcoming you to episode 4 of the HypeCast, your weekly fun topic-based podcast all about video games with SnowBikeMike and some of his favorite best friends. Of course, I am joined by one of my favorite co-hosts of all time, Tom Bock. This week, we're going to be talking about a whole lot of fun stuff. We are now returning from PAX West up in beautiful Seattle, Tom Bock's stomping grounds, and we had a total blast. We played a lot of games, and we can't wait to tell you all about our experiences. And then we're going to talk about super very easy baby mode in video games and what games we would like to play in that super easy mode. So let's sit back, relax, and have some fun with this week's HypeCast. Tom Bock, how are you doing? Welcome in this week.
Man, how much fun do we have at PAX West, Mike Howard? I mean, come on.
Well, let's
How
start
great
off.
of a couple of days was that? That was like, it really is like nerd Disneyland. Like, we had so much fun. Who cares how crowded it was? I mean, it's a big, crowded, sweaty mess of people, but man, we had so much fun. It was such a great 4 days.
I mean, let's start off in preference. Tom Bock, you made our PAX West possible. Tom Bock went out of his way, ensured me and Cristian and the SnowBikeMike team could get up there, have some fun with him and the family and all of our fellow best friends. So really, everything is owed to you, Tom. You ensured that trip happened, so thank you. But man, was that the coolest experience. And I mean, when I say the coolest experience, I mean this summer, Tom, we went to E3, we went to RTX, and then we finished out at PAX West. And I have to say, hands down, that was the best experience around.
Man, I love to hear that. It was so good to have you come do that because, you know, I've done it. I do it because it's here in Seattle. I do it pretty much every year. And this year was definitely different than the rest. And I know it was funny, like when the first day I saw you when we had lunch with Cristian, is like, it's always, for people who haven't been before, it's like, what do you expect versus what it actually was, right? So give me your, like, from what you thought it was, right? You see all these people going and tweeting stuff and whatever else. Like, give me the high level of what you thought it was going to be versus what it actually was, and then I'll give you some thoughts of kind of how I think of PAX.
So it was interesting going in. Like I said, I had that previous experience at E3 that's really dedicated to the games, the announcements, celebrating the people who make them. And then on the flip side, we just had gotten back from RTX down in Austin, which is all about the community, right? It's all about the kids, the people who support these content creators and celebrating them. So we had seen these two different sides of the spectrum. And when we heard about PAX, we kind of knew it was more indie focused and what that really looked like with panels, games, and then all of a sudden Cyberpunk saying they would be there. We thought, oh man, this is going to be a big blend of the two, which all in all, it seemed to be, Tom.
Yeah, and I'm always astounded at how big that event really is, right? I mean, it is really, really a lot of people there. And the thing that always kind of catches me, and I know this is a weird thing to say, but just the act of putting on a show of that size is just mind-boggling to me. The creativity of the sets, the amount of, you know, time and attention to every little detail that happens in that thing. It's just mind-boggling because it's however many stories of the convention center. You know, there's just so much going on there. And for me, man, I tell you, the thing I love about PAX, and by the way, I totally appreciate you watching my kids sometimes. We go off and do stuff, man. They had so much fun with you. It was just, I mean, everything about those 4 days was like, will forever be in my memory. Honestly, it will be. But the amount of stuff that we saw, there was such a diversity of games there, and I think that there always is. And I'm usually, you know, I mean, there was something for everybody. Like literally, there's something for everybody there, right? From like, you know, the big AAA games to the huge floors of indie games, all the merch stuff. Like it is just such an amazingly huge event. For some reason this year I totally dealt with the crowds. Like it didn't bug me. In past years I've kind of gotten annoyed with the crowds. This year I was totally fine with it. The only thing that kind of stunk, and you and I talked about it as we were going, is it was kind of hard to get in to see some of the AAA games, right? We got lucky in a few cases, and you know, you have to use an app to get a time and all that. That is a huge pain in the neck because you don't get to see everything. But there wasn't much that I mean, at least I didn't feel like I left there with like, oh man, I wish I would have seen that or done that. We kind of got to do everything that we wanted to do and see, and then some. Like we got plenty of time with certain games. So man, it was an awesome 4 days.
No doubt, Tom. They did a phenomenal job at kind of hitting that sweet spot of blending the big AAAs, the waiting in the lines, going up to that sixth floor with all the indie games. And I think it was a really fun time for the consumer side, I'm sure the press had their chances to do interviews, but from that consumer side, it was well worth it. The lines weren't overly long, and really you had some of the biggest games that we saw at E3 right there on the show floor. I definitely want to touch on it, like you talked about, some of the booths and the experiences that we saw were really cool, and I think when you want to talk about booth spaces, you want to talk about going that extra mile for that experience, we definitely, E3 is untouched, right? Like when we walked into E3, Nintendo's big booth, they had Sonic Olympic Games, there was a rock wall, they had a track and field thing that you could do the 100-yard dash on for pictures and laughs, they had their own Luigi's Mansion, but I do have to say, they did a really good job at taking the Nintendo booth from E3, downsizing it to what they were going to have floor space-wise. They still brought the Pokemon that you could take a photo next to. They brought Gooigi, which was really cool. So they touched on some of those big ones, which was really cool. Secret Neighbor had this big sprawling space in the dead middle of the floor, which was awesome, with a big built-up house. Made you really feel like it was a unique space. But of course, the biggest one that was missing from E3 was PlayStation. I thought their booth was truly incredible. When you saw that at PAX West, bright blue, PlayStation branding everywhere. Predator was the marquee title, so they had the jungle. They had Death Stranding right next to it as a theater. And, PlayStation really went E3 level inside of PAX, which was really big for me because as you and I walked in and talked about, Tom, right, my dream would be one of those booth workers, right? I want to promote the games. I want to hang out in those experiences. And seeing the different booths and what they did for a smaller scale convention, which really PAX West is massive, right? It's not smaller, but compared to E3 where they're putting all the dollars in, to see what that difference is was so cool, and I think they did a really good job. You touched on the app, which, maybe we should touch on before I get too far. Do you want to say anything about the experiences there?
There was two things. I'll give you kind of a couple experiences that I had that were along the lines of the booths and stuff, right? As far as and I agree with you, PlayStation went all out. They did a fantastic job. It's just so like visually appealing, especially like the Death Stranding one, which we'll talk about later on. But again, the amount of time and detail and effort that goes into these, and like as you said, talking to the people that work there, they're spinning these things up like in a couple of days. They tear them down in a couple of days. Like the size of the amount of work and coordination and production, it really is amazing. But man, there was two things that totally, like if I think of the experience and that I could, over any of the days I was there, I just couldn't get over. There was two. The first one was the Destiny booth. And I tweeted out at one point, like, for people to get the size, if you have never been to PAX West, for those who have never been or one of these, like it is a sea of people, like hours and hours of waiting in a demo line to get at stuff, right? Destiny, I could be wrong. I can't count the numbers, and there was definitely some, spots of the show floor that have way more crowds than others. But dude, I swear Destiny was the most crowded, and it was crowded the entire time. Every time we walked past it there in that corner, and I'm like, what in the world is it? It's not that anyone there has never played Destiny. They've absolutely played it. They've played a ton of it. They've played a ridiculous amount of it, and they're still willing to wait in the line at a convention to play an expansion. I'm like, that game is just so much bigger than anything. I guess because I don't play it as much as I used to. I forget how big that game is, dude. Like, that's crazy to me that the most crowded spot was Destiny throughout the whole thing. That was the first thing that blew my mind. And then the second thing, Final Fantasy freaking 7, man. That thing was like, I think you may have gone the last day. Didn't you and Cristian get to play it the last day?
I'm breaking up. Say it again, Tom.
Oh, you and Cristian get to play Final Fantasy 7 the last day? Did you get to see it at all? Did you get any time with it?
Cristian did, and that's a good one because I definitely want to talk about that one. Cristian did. I kept the ticket that I have up here on the wall, but I already played it at E3, so I did not play the same exact demo again.
Okay, gotcha. That one was the same to me. It was like, I forget how big that community is. I forget how much the love of that game is going to be. I was never a Final Fantasy person. I have no feelings either way for it, like or dislike. But man, that was also the other spot of the show floor that was like, you couldn't get near it, right? Even the Nintendo stuff, like Luigi's Mansion was really crowded and all that. But you kind of get a weird sense of like the games that are as big as they are when you're in that environment. And to me, those were the ones that I just don't. I would have thought there would have been other stuff that had kind of the zeitgeist and everybody was after, but man, Destiny was like the thing, and I was just sort of baffled by that here on the heels of the new DLC coming out.
Yeah, Destiny had a really cool booth, like you said, and it was always popping. I did talk with a lot of fellow best friends, and they said the line was turning and burning because what they were doing was playing the PvP
Mm.
mode of the game. So they were able to turn and burn those kids. And the best part that they were saying is they were on that, I don't know if it's called Gambit or whatever mode, but if
Oh
you
yeah, yeah,
won,
yeah.
you earned a medallion. Then you went back and you gambled that medallion on your next game. So if you won, you got a second medallion, and the third would net you a nice pin that was super exclusive. So I think that kind of brought the zeitgeist to it of like, I won, I got to get back in line, I got to try it again, I got to do it one more time. And yeah, like you said, Tom, that booth was happening, had incredible merch, had awesome 3D replicas of all your favorite Destiny guns. So they really did a good job of making it feel like an E3 quality level, but also, hey, it's not over the top, it's not huge, but it's happening over there. My favorite part about Final Fantasy, what you touched on, is it was just like E3, right? It was one of the hottest games to go play. There was never a line because they handed out tickets early in the morning, which means you had to run from whatever entrance you were at and be the first one there. So they handed you a ticket for a time slot. But the biggest difference for Final Fantasy VII Remake this time was at E3, they had it completely blocked off. You couldn't even see inside the booth. You couldn't take photos near the booth. And at PAX West, they had shown it so many times, I was asking one of the employees there, that they had now taken down the walls and you could see the gameplay from the show floor because A, they knew it was so big that most kids wouldn't be able to play it, and B, they had shown this demo so many times from wherever, Gamescom and E3, and then they would go to Tokyo Game Show that it didn't need to be hidden anymore, which was really cool to see. You could just watch it from the line or wherever you were on the show floor, which I liked a lot for them to be able to do. But yeah, incredible stuff, Tom. Really fun all around. Cool experiences. I mean, yeah, Destiny was awesome. The Indie Mega Booth with all the different indie games was really a cool treat and a delight to see, along with the sixth floor of indies. Coming from E3, there was no real indie booth, right? There was no presence on that. You were either super AAA or that middle grade area. You weren't a small developer on one picnic table size bench. And man, to be able to go up on the sixth floor was really a treat, and see all those different people's hard work was really awesome.
Man, and isn't it crazy too when you see the indies and you see the passion that those people have, and it really does. First of all, man, you do need to get a job doing one of those booths because you would be so good at that, man. You and I talk all the time about sort of what your future holds and your destiny in this industry is, but that is so much your wheelhouse. I mean, you and I talked to tons of people, especially like at the PlayStation booth. I think we played the Medieval demo and got to talk to that girl for a little bit and different people. Like that's perfect for you. But when you see the difference between, and I'm trying to think what game it was specifically, and I don't know if it was, what was the basketball one that we played? The
Dunk Lords is what that one's
Dunk
called.
Lords,
I'll never
okay.
forget.
That was fantastic. But these people hustle so hard, right? These independent developers, to watch them. And for you and I, we're just there having fun, seeing the best friends, joking around. And for these people, I mean, this is serious, serious biz, right? They're trying to get sets of eyes on their games. And you see, I mean, like that VR Acorn game we did with my daughter that she liked so much. I mean, that's like, people putting up their own money, their own livelihood, working God knows how long on these games. Like, it's such an important thing for them to get out there and show stuff because, as we talked about, man, there's a lot of stuff going on in the industry. I don't even know how you get people's attention these days when you're one of those smaller developers and you're one of these smaller companies. But that's an event that allows them to do that. And man, it just like warms my heart to see these people and how much pride they have in what they do and how much they care about the quality of their games and everything else. And there was, for better or for worse, man, the big games like Predator and even Concrete Genie to some degree. I'm always reminded how hard it is to demo a game at an event like that, right? It may not be sort of ready to go. I know there was tons of issues with Predator, as fun as that game was. That can kind of backfire on you a little bit if you're not being careful. Concrete Genie was a little bit the same. As awesome as that game was, the controls are just really complicated. It's kind of obtuse. And you could leave there kind of like turned off by a game more than you could be turned on by it. So I was kind of surprised too. Especially the Predator one, as cool as that. And by the way, I think we tweeted out and posted some pictures. The actual Predator was freaking terrifying. That was like the craziest costume. It was the perfect licensed Predator, like a 7-foot tall basketball player inside that costume. That dude was awesome. But that game was just, it probably didn't need to be there from a sense of readiness. Like, You played it. What did you? I mean, that thing just it didn't. It seemed it was a lot of glitches and a lot of bugs from what I saw in it.
Oh, I played it probably 5 times. And personally, we're going to talk about it as one of my favorite games. We'll get a little more in depth. But there was some hiccups. I think gameplay wise, it was ready. But the reality of what a convention looks like, the things that needed to be in play for that, and maybe balancing with the game, we're not ready, right? We didn't have any party chat. So meaning, we'll probably talk about this in a moment, but meaning the soldiers did not have any way to communicate with one another. So we'll talk about that. We had some fun moments there. And then as well, the Predator felt very overpowered. We never won against the Predator once as the super soldiers, but man, it was so good, Tom. And I need that to release tomorrow. But before we jump into our favorite video games, I do want to say one thing. With the Sony place, we talked about lines and how long E3 is, people standing in lines for hours on end. I think PAX is a great blend of you have the indie mega booth, you have the 6th floor, you have so many games along 2 expo halls that it never feels like you're in too long of a line, maybe like E3 is, where everybody's packed into certain AAA games. You're standing there for 2 hours at a time. This felt really fast moving and easy to say, you know what, let's go play something different. There's a lot of games in front of us. But a big kudos to PlayStation for coming out with an app where you can actually assign yourself a time and know that you don't have to worry about anything. As well, Ubisoft did a terrific job. And we're going to give a little more praise to Ubisoft over PlayStation on the forethought of what they did. And I'm sure, Tom, you'll be able to chime in with this. But on the PlayStation side, they made an app that we could sign up for times in. They had it open at 8:30 a.m. and 1 a.m. for different time slots in the morning and afternoon. Now, the issue is me and Tom Bock have to be up at 8:30 in the morning clicking on the game that we want to play. I will tell you, by day 2 and day 3 and day 4, when people figured out the app, those games filled up so fast, those time slots. You would sign up for one, and you would try to go back in the app and go for a second one. Everything was full. I would call Tom at 8:30 like, please, God, you better press this button. And he's like, no, everything filled up faster than you could believe. Now, the flip side to that problem is at PAX West, unlike E3, there's no cell phone service, Tom. We couldn't make a phone call, send a text message. I couldn't log on to a Twitter app. So when they said, hey, just log on at 1 o'clock, reapply for whatever game you wanted, you would physically have to leave the convention 2 blocks away to even get service. That's how bad the service was inside of PAX West, which was mind-blowing to me. So it was always like, oh, I want to play this at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, but they'd be like, oh, you can log on at 1. Well, it's like, I can't even get onto the application. This is too bad. So what were some of your thoughts on the PlayStation one?
Man, and it went in like literal nanoseconds. I remember, I think it was the 3rd day, trying to get in to see the Death Stranding one, and the app would update kind of in real time. And literally at 8:30, all the spots open, and I remember just watching it, 20 spots, just ding, 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 they all go down, and I just hit one like way down in the list, like, I got to pray that I can get at least in to see this, because it was really the one thing that I desperately wanted to see. And I know my daughter was there, and I'm like, hey, I don't think this is probably one that I want to take her into, but I still wanted to go do it. So that was crazy, but it is awesome when you could just walk right up. I mean, I think it's the pro and the con of that thing is you could walk right up to the most crowded, high, sort of populated area and just walk right in if you got that time. But man, you think of the small amount of people who were able to go pull that thing off, because like you said, you get one shot at it. You better pick, because I really wanted to do the Iron Man VR thing. Couldn't get near that. I missed on Predator because we were all trying to get together on Predator. By the time I got there, it was all sold out. And when I say by the time I got there, I'm talking like 15 seconds, right? Man, it was crazy. So it's like, I don't know if there's a better way to do that. I mean, I kept thinking about the system of how they let you do that. And I don't know that there's a better way. I mean, maybe the way Ubisoft did it was a little bit better by letting you sign up right there on the spot. That one felt a little more like you had some control of it. But I don't know that they had the same draw. I mean, they've got games that are coming out, like Ghost Recon, which was really, really crowded. I mean, there was never a spot at Ghost Recon you could get into either. But it just felt like you had a little more opportunity to kind of get in and see some of their stuff if you were willing to book, hey, it's 10 a.m. I'm going to book something for 3 p.m., 4 p.m., whatever it was. But man, that was maybe it's just like the physics of what this thing is. If you have that many people that want to see your stuff, there's no better way to do it than the way that they did it. And if you get lucky, you get lucky. If you don't, you don't.
Yeah, no doubt. So Ubisoft, like Tom said, you could walk up to the booth and sign up on an iPad, which was a brilliant thing. But of course, that favors the people who are first thing there in the morning, rushing to the booth, just like Final Fantasy VII. So there's a little give and take on both ends. But I really think when we talk about the future of E3, 2020, which everybody's talking about what this is really going to be like, I think those two applications are going to somehow find the good and the bads between the both of them and merge here together to really avoid, hey, we're adding another 15,000 tickets available to E3, which will now bump it up to 25,000. And if you think you were waiting in the, Cyberpunk line for 2 hours, it's going to be even longer than that. So I think they're going to have to really start playing with the pros of the PlayStation, doing it from the comfort of your home, but having the con of this is going to fill up faster than you can even believe, right? And then on the flip side, the pro of going to Ubisoft and signing up for something way in the future, but you got to be there first thing in the morning. You're running to this booth, trying to type it in iPad furiously. So I'm sure they're going to find a happy medium in the middle, and there will always be waiting in lines. But I really wanted to spotlight those two because I thought they were really awesome to see at this convention and what we could get into. But now let's turn our eyes to our favorite games, because that's what I'm dying to get into, Tom. Let's talk about some of our favorite games that we saw at PAX West, whether they be the big AAA titles, whether they be the small indies. What were some of your favorites that you got to play at PAX West with me, your family, and just yourself?
There was, another little observation for me, at least with PAX, was I had forgotten how many non-AAA but not indie games were still out there, and it was a big reminder of all those games. Like Medieval, for example, I had completely forgotten about that being a thing and when it was coming out, and so that one was really cool for me. I enjoyed that one. Concrete Genie fits into that too, and I kind of cracked on a little bit earlier as far as the controls, but that had nothing to do with the game. It was just a very different, kind of a control scheme that I've never played before in a game. Certainly a game that, is about doing graffiti and tagging and stuff like that. Of course, the controls are kind of new and weird. So those two kind of really caught my eye as far as something interesting. The Death Stranding one was weird because it was just a movie, right? And it was a lot of hype, and it was really cool. And it was, at least for me, I hadn't seen, I guess, a lot of that stuff. Maybe I just didn't keep up as much as I should have. But some people came out of there going, yeah, I'd seen like 50% of that before, which I hadn't. I hadn't seen some of that stuff before. So to me, I walked out of there like, holy smokes. we talked about the gameplay stuff, and I know we'll talk a lot more Death Stranding here as we get into later on topics. So I won't spend too much time on that one. But that one was also really cool. But by far, to me, the coolest thing we did by a mile, was Roller Champions.
Oh,
there was nothing for me that came close to what that was. That, like, I can vividly remember, like, that entire time we played. For those who don't know what it is, it's the new Ubisoft, like, is it officially called Roller Derby? Because I think just the scoring
Roller
aspect
Champions.
of it is a little Roller Champions.
Right? Yeah, the closest to that is going to be Roller Derby, correct? Yeah, definitely.
Right. With a little twist on it of having a goal and scoring and doing some stuff. But man, oh man, if that game is not the most fun, amazing, it's like, for lack of an easier way to say it, it really is like Rocket League on roller skates. That was so much fun, dude. Like that, I can't believe that game's not coming out because it was so well made. It seemed ready. It seemed polished. Everything about it seemed ready. It's not coming out till like March of 2020. But man, that was, to me, that was the thing that I enjoyed the most.
Oh, no doubt about it, Tom. I mean, you really touched on my number two. My number one and number two, Predator, Hunting Grounds, and Roller Champions number two right there. Those two games could come out tomorrow. They look ready. They play like they're ready. They're fun. There's going to be some balancing and tuning and some extra stuff we're probably not seeing behind the scenes. But when you were there at PAX West, you left both of those games saying, I need this right now, because that's how much fun they were. So I'll talk about Predator, or you know what? I'll continue on Roller Champions. I thought Roller Champions was a cool experience, a great booth. They had a really cool background of half the roller derby wall up there. They had different booths, and every team, it was a 3-on-3 situation, but every team had a coach. And when we stepped up and the coach heard us yelling at each other, he knew we were going to have a great time. And we played this game probably 6 to 7 times over the weekend, beating each other up, beating up on random people, laughing, enjoying ourselves, learning the game. And this was a game that was shown at Ubisoft E3 and actually went into alpha for a quick week or 2 week period right after E3 that you could play it. Maybe it was a weekend, but you could play that and then it went dead silent. And so when we were able to pick that up and play that, that was so cool. I mean, being able to dodge each other, having the hit mechanic that felt like Madden, NFL Street, where you would lay somebody out. There's passing. Like Tom said, it's not just about rolling around the rink. You eventually have to shoot and score. And the shooting at first, you have no idea what's happening until you really pay attention on what this looks like, which is a total blast. It's really awesome. And we started to get into some higher level techniques by the end of the weekend, right? We figured out the more times you go around the rink in one consecutive spin, you can actually get more points up on the board with your next goal. Then all of a sudden, we decided, you know what? We want to try to roller skate through the goal, which our coach was laughing. He said he had never seen that all weekend. He didn't even think it was possible. And we spent an entire 7-minute game. We didn't let the other team have the ball, and we would go back and forth trying to roll right through this game. People applauded us when we left that because they loved that we were trying to do something weird with the video game. So truly an incredible game. I can't wait for that to come out. That's a must play. On the flip side, for me, Predator Hunting Grounds was my hands down favorite game. And we talk about these, asymmetrical games, the 4-on-1s, the multiplayer base that has to be behind it, from Evolve, Friday the 13th, Dead by Daylight, and what that really looks like. But man, when you play Predator and you are put into a first-person shooter when you're the Marines, it is a total blast. And they really did a good job at, it's not just some sandbox where you just kind of run around and hope to find the Predator. No, as the Marines, you have 3 set objectives that you have to do around the map to eventually get evac'd out. And as the Predator, your goal is to find these 4 commandos, kill them, and then you win. And I can tell you, like Tom said, the biggest hiccup was there was no party chat. Right, so by game number 2, we had noticed we couldn't communicate with Tom across the TV screens over on the opposite side. So you'll see photos of me. I had my cell phone at one point on speakerphone above my head, so me and my buddy could talk with the people over there. On the 5th game, we just decided to start yelling, which of course caused a major commotion over at that booth. Everybody was staring at us as we were screaming at one another to try to survive, try to get evacuated out. But nothing is better than playing as the Predator. It's like being the monster, Friday the 13th, Michael. You are so powerful. You're in full control. You go from tree limb to tree limb. You can drop down on people. You can shoulder cannon them. And it is truly fun to hunt your opponents and just prey on the weak. I mean, I won my first game, and it was strictly because I'd find one kid that walked too far off to the left, and I would be all over him. And then I'd look for the next kid, and I'd be all over him. And then I could hear them in the background. They'd be screaming at each other like, oh, my God, oh, my God. And that's when I knew fear had taken over, and I just took them by surprise. And it was so much fun. I really, big shout out to Sony. We didn't see him at E3. For them to have a booth, like Tom said, with Medieval, Concrete Genie, various different PSVR games that you could play, from Iron Man to a couple others. I think Groundhog Day was there.
Yep.
Predator. And then, of course, the theater mode of Death Stranding. Tom talked about it. I had seen Death Stranding from all the trailers, all the previews, all the videos, and then to that, answered so many questions and more. I really enjoy those theater modes. It gets you off your feet in a dark room, probably some fans on you where you can relax. And it was nice to be able just to sit down for 40 minutes, not think about playing a game, watch this and say, oh my gosh, this answered all of my questions I had before, made me feel confident about the game, and gives me even more questions leading up to its release in November. So the Death Stranding booth was A+ for me. Of course, everybody else saw that at Tokyo Game Show. He came out with like a 45-minute gameplay video that we saw at
Just
PAX
right
West,
after,
So
Yeah.
it was pretty cool that now everybody's kind of on an even keel here, and at least if they want to do some deep dive digging into the game, they would know what we saw.
And dude, what about the Borderlands booth?
Borderlands booth continued 2 conventions in a row to be one of the most packed booths I've ever seen. And that booth, turns out people. And there's always a 3-hour plus line. It moves, but at the same time, you get, I think they give you 20 minutes to defeat a boss, but you can keep defeating him as much as you want in that 20 minutes. So essentially what Cristian said, because he had played it both times, is you get 20 minutes, they drop you in, you can run, kill that guy, do it all over again. He tried to kill the boss 3 total times in his 20-minute playthrough because he knew what to do every single time he would play it.
Man, they were killing it, though, because they had that really cool, like, the stuff that I really dig, like we talked about at the beginning, is I really dig all the art and the stuff that they put into the actual sets and the booths and stuff like that. So there was that amazing one for Monster Hunter, the Iceborne, the DLC, that giant dragon, right? And so I think some of the best memories, it was so cool. The memories that I have that are the best from PAX are those weird, like, picture moments and things that you get to keep. You know, we didn't talk about it earlier. My kids love going to PAX. Like, they talk about it all year. I love that they love it, right? They're still at an age where, you know, they're still okay to hang out with that. It's not awesome, but at least it's okay. But man, they have so much fun doing that stuff and being able to take, like last year they had this really cool Spider-Man one where it was one of those 360 cams, right, that takes a whole bunch of pictures around you. And Borderlands had one where you could get all in full makeup, right? You could get made up as one of the, I'm not sure if it was just, I'm sure just a handful of the specific different characters. And it was a full green screen thing. Like they would put you in and do the cell shading and make a little video of you inside of this. And it's the only thing that I regret that we didn't get to do. In fact, my youngest was going to do it at one point. You remember we got in line and there was like that really cute booth girl that was like, oh yeah, come in and you can, you know, it takes about a half hour, and she was going to do it. And then she's like, oh, but I'm going to have makeup on my face the rest of the day, and didn't do it. It's the only thing that I wish I would have done, because that would have been such a cool memory to have. Because to even look back at last year, and I went back when we finished, it's like at the weird little time capsule when you go do those things, right? Because like last year, Spider-Man was about to come out, and Spider-Man feels like miles away from me now, right? Like it's been gone for a while. I love that game. It's going to be one of my favorites of all time. But it's so weird to look back at the, 5 or 10 things we did last year and then the 5 or 10 things we did this year and kind of time capsule those things, and then it'll be on to next year. So I love all those picture opportunities and all the cool stuff we got to see. And man, you got to do all the extracurricular stuff. You did all the kind of funny stuff. I mean, you had a whole different experience than I did of memories and things that are like, again, once in a lifetime-y kind of things for that particular year. That to me is what this whole thing's about at the end of the day, is these memories that I'm going to have of you and of Cristian and of Chris and of, all the different people we met, not to leave anybody's name out, but man, that's what that whole event's about to me.
Oh, it was awesome, Tom. Before we get into our final moments and thoughts, especially those experiences, I do want to touch on our favorite indies, because I know you and we played a couple of really standout indies. 2 of my favorites, Dunk Lords. It's funny, we came out of E3, right, and I played a game called Project Dunk, which somehow, I don't know who these people are, but they come up with the weirdest video game adjectives to try to sell their game. And when we were at E3, the guy explained Project Dunk as a 2v2 street simulated basketball game, but it was a basketball brawler, meaning you could punch each other, you all had special abilities. Somehow when we went to PAX West, there was a game called Dunk Lords with that exact same premise, but actually ran much better, had a little more in-depth with the characters and cooler art style. And man, did we cause a commotion over at that booth every time we played it. I loved Dunk Lords. And of course, a big one that we got to share with Tom, his daughters, Cristian, which everybody loves, right? We all came off of Overcooked. We loved that. That same team is now making Moving Out, which Moving Out, hands down, one of the best indie games, one of the coolest games I've played on the show floor. And that game is going to be a must-play for sure.
Yeah, it's going to be for sure. But, man, you can't leave out the big one, too. Lonely Mountains Downhill.
Oh, Tom, don't
That's
even
going to be your... It's coming soon. It's coming, like, really soon. Like, I think that game's coming out. Like, I keep looking at it. It's like in the next couple of months that game's going to be out. And you're going to be streaming that freaking thing, like, 4 nights a week. I'm telling you.
It's incredible how many games there are, right? We talk about Lonely Mountain Downhill. Me, Tom, his daughter, and Cristian played an incredible VR game where his daughter was in VR, she was the tree, and all of us were actually playing on mobile cell phone devices, and we were the squirrels trying to grab acorns from underneath her, take her back to our base while she was trying to whip tree branches and beat us up. And that was one of the coolest experiences I've ever seen from. There's somebody, like we always talk about being in a VR space that's supposed to be kind of like solitude, lonely, just you inside of this world. But somehow here's us right next to her, right? Watching her do this and playing on our own devices. I thought that was really cool to kind of change up that medium that I always thought was a singular person. We're not talking in the same room. I'm doing my own thing here. So that was really fun. A big one, of course, we saw Shovel Knight with its its arena mode, which I never thought I'd see a Shovel Knight with an arena mode. That was wild to play. Windjammers 2 was there. I want to give a big shout out, Tom, to this one team that was right next to Dunklord. You guys know I'm a big sports fan. Of course, my dream, right, would be like a Halo, a Madden, an NBA Live in VR where I'm actually moving and doing it all. And this team next to us had a quarterback simulator where you would hike the ball, you could look up and down across the field, and you would physically throw. And it felt so good. It was a lot of fun. Of course, it's like the very basic. There wasn't any juking or dodging, but to feel throwing it and that person catching the ball on the opposite side was really, really cool that I really enjoyed.
And I love that they're even working on that kind of stuff because you think about that next iteration of sports games, being able to shoot, being able to throw, especially with Oculus now, maybe doing hand tracking. And I mean, that was very, very cool. But dude, Lonely Mountains Downhill, for those who haven't checked it out, it's a bike game. You're on a bike going down a hill. Go YouTube it. This game is, it's fun. It's genuinely a fun sort of racing, getting down a mountain game. I can just see that just being that was the best indie one that we saw. At least to me it was.
No doubt, Tom. Well, we'll end this segment with our final thoughts of the experience. For me, Tom, like I touched on it at the beginning, going into PAX West, there's a lot of key factors, right? You're going up to Seattle, Washington, one of the most beautiful places on the planet. There's so many cool touristy things to do, which is really special there, right? We've gone to LA, Austin, and they all have their different vibes and cool things to do. But Seattle is really unique. The weather, the waterfront, the different areas you can go, the incredible restaurants, the downtown feel, really it culminates into something incredible to be a part of. Then on the flip side, like we've always talked about, E3, PAX, these are the gaming meccas. This is what everybody dreams to go to. And to be able to go up to PAX and see that it is a blend of E3 with all the video games, big announcements, and everything that you want to be a part of, plus the community like we talked about. We went to the What's Good Games girls panels. We went to the OK Beast had a panel. I got to co-host the interwebsite video game tournament with Greg Miller for Kinda Funny.
Yes.
To be able to have these panels where you can engage with your favorite video game media personalities or video game YouTubers, that's a really special blend that E3 doesn't have, and it sounds like next year they're going to really try to dive into how they can make that possible, because PAX is very unique in that way where you can get up close and personal with some of your favorite celebrities and also play some of the biggest game titles on the planet. And that all culminated into an experience that's 4 days long over an incredible weekend. And we saw things that we didn't even see certain things. There's 3 hotels, 2 expo halls, a 6th floor that's full of video games. We never saw the VR world. We rarely went to any panels besides those standout ones. There's a tabletop area for 4 different levels of a hotel. There is so much to do at PAX West. It really culminates into a must-do. One thing, if you could only do one out of all those experiences from across the globe and all the different events, this might be one that you really want to circle for what it provides the community.
Yeah, and I think, man, you said the one thing that because I never do those other things, there's entire rooms set up for tabletop gaming. There's entire rooms set up for, hundreds of PCs networked together playing League of Legends. The big esports lounge that they had. Dude, the merch. I mean, that's the one unique thing about PAX is they're selling a ton of merch. Like, I spent way too much money on t-shirts and pins and all the
Yep.
different merch stuff that they have. Like, and then the other hotels, like you said, we didn't even go over to check out the other stuff that they had. So it really is that there's something for everybody type of an event that's not really geared towards just one thing or one group of people, as I'm sure my experience was vastly different than was yours, than was everybody else that went to that thing. And that's kind of what makes it so interesting. I wish it wasn't so damn expensive, if I'm being honest. Like, they do a really crappy job with how they get tickets out to the general public. It seems like a little bit of a racket. And man, it hurt. Like, it hurts my wallet to go there for 4 days and take the kids and pay for parking and food. And it's the only, I mean, I don't want to bitch about money, but it's the one and only thing about that I wish was a little bit less, is like, because it's such a fun experience that it stinks to have money kind of get in the way of that. It is what it is. It's just the nature of what this business has turned into. But I think I had more fun this year than I have the other 4 years I've gone now. Like, this to me was sort of the pinnacle year, and it really was because of you and hanging out with the friends the whole time. It just was such a great experience.
Awesome experience, Tom. So we're going to take a little HypeCast break, but right now, in between our break, we're going to talk about some of the games that we've been playing. Tom, I know that you have currently been playing a game that's on my download list. I have yet to touch the tile on my Xbox and actually start it up, so why don't you tell me all about Control?
Yeah, first of all, I didn't know that you hadn't played it yet, man. I thought you had started getting into it. I thought you were a little bit into it. Man, this has been, I was really taken off guard by this game in general, as far as what I thought it was going to be versus what it actually is. And I've been a Remedy fan over the years, so it's not like I'm not familiar with their style, and it definitely has a very Remedy-esque, you know, sort of the aesthetic, and you can clearly tell that they're kind of using the same engine that they did for, what was it, Quantum Break or whatever, the one that was the Xbox one from the year prior. But I have been so pleasantly surprised with what I got out of this game, man. There was a couple of weeks where I was completely addicted to playing this thing. The combat system is incredibly fluid. There are definitely some issues around, people have been commenting on the frame rates, and there's some spots where you're dropping some frames, and it's a little bit of it needs some tuning, which I think they've been doing through some of the patches. But man, it is a really, really special game that comes out of, you know, that those late August games are sort of in a weird spot because they have some big ones. I mean, what was it, within 2 weeks of Borderlands, 2 weeks of Gears, you know, Code Vein, The Surge 2, like there's all these games kind of coming out. But I was so unbelievably surprised by the length of the game. It's incredibly long and meaty. Really weird story. Like I actually thought there was probably going to be more to the story at the end, sort of some big twists, not to get in any kind of spoilery territory, but the story is really kind of a head trip. You're not really sure what's real, what's not real. But it's got a fantastic sort of, you know, like rock, paper, scissors, as I call it, sort of combat system where, you know, you need a certain type of weapon to kill a certain type of enemy who's got certain abilities that can kind of counteract yours. And so if you're not using the right approach, so it's sort of a little bit of a thinker when it comes to how you approach combat. But man, Mike, you got to play it. It's one that's on a must-play list for me. Like, as a game fan, it's not one you can miss. It's that unique. It's that different than probably you think it's going to be, or than any game you've ever played before. It is. Did you play the Quantum Break one at all? Did you play that one from Remedy's last one? You did.
Yeah, and I liked that. I thought it was really cool.
It's really similar to that, but it's almost like an evolved version of that. And what I mean by that is it's almost like they took the best parts of that game when it came to shooting and sort of that, just the fluidity of movement and motion that game had, and they kind of designed the entire game around it. And from what I can see, now I don't even want to guess, maybe 50 hours I put into it, maybe 40, 50. And there's a continuing end game to it. Like, there's a little bit of, you know, not just side missions, but there's more there at the end if you want to kind of keep going and try some different things, some extra bosses and stuff. Dude, it's a game you have to play. Like, as an Xbox guy in particular, like, it's one that you kind of can't miss on Xbox. I think it's, even though it's not like an exclusive game in that sense, it is a really, really well-made. Nice to see Remedy kind of back at that level that you know, we know that they've had games at that quality before, but man, it's a must play.
Tom, I've been sold off of your recommendation. A lot of other people, they've been talking about this, and some people have even been, giving it highest praises of it. Could be Game of the Year contender. Will be definitely up in that top 5 list. So, like I said, I've purchased it. It's on the Xbox tile. I have just yet to click it because I am one bad mamma jamma when it comes to just clicking on different games and rolling with it. And that actually plays into my game, which is just like yours. I would tell everyone to stop what they're doing and experience this game. Play it. The best part about it is you can beat it in 40 minutes. It does have a really cool, repetitious look or loop where you can go back and try to get better at each level is what the kind of game is. But I got to play, Tom, Sayonara Wild Hearts, and I can't do it justice. So I'm actually going to go to the webpage, and I'm going to set the tone with what they've described it from CMOGO and Annapurna, because it really sets a great tone to what the game is, and then I'll tell you how incredible the experience is. So over here on Sayonara Wild Hearts, a pop album video game. Sayonara Wild Hearts is a dreamy arcade game about riding motorcycles, skateboarding, dance battling, shooting lasers, wielding swords, and breaking hearts at 200 miles per hour. As the heart of a young woman breaks, the balance of the universe is disturbed. A diamond butterfly appears in her dreams and leads her through a highway in the sky where she finds her other self, the masked biker called the Fool. Journey through a custom-written pop soundtrack, chase scores, and set out to find the harmony of the universe hidden away in the hearts of Little Death and her star-crossed allies, Dancing Devils, Howling Moons, Stereo Lovers, and Hermit 64. Let's pop. Now, that is some wild stuff right there, and it really sets
like they just put words together. They just made a bunch of words and put them together.
I highly recommend you read that, embrace that, and then turn it on. It's on Apple Arcade. It's on Nintendo Switch, and I think PS4 as well. This game, Tom, was an experience unlike anything I've ever played in video games. This game took me from what is it to oh snap is that Queen Latifah to the giant shit-eating green that I've ever had on my entire face, laughing, smiling from ear to ear, to the ending happened and I was in dead tears. I turned off the stream. I couldn't be seen. I was shaken. I was rocked with overwhelming joy, feelings, all from this experience. Wow. And it was so cool. And like I said, it's only 40 minutes. It's got this weird blend of, it feels like Sonic, an Endless Runner, and Crash Bandicoots all cranked up to 11 with this incredible album that goes from song to song for each level, where you are nodding your head going, man, I love this song, or, oh, this is a different feel and tone of this song, to, oh, man, this is a club banger here that everybody needs to hear. And while you're playing through all that, you continue to feel the motion, where you need to be on the screen, how are you going to dodge this attack, what side of the screen you need to be on, just like in Sonic and Crash Bandicoot. And you do it over and over again. You can earn different ranks, which really plays into the repetitious nature, right? You fall in love with the songs. You could do the level again. The bright colors, the pop of it all really set the stage for something truly special. And like I said, this is an experience that I've never felt before in video games. And I didn't think I would either, right? Like I said, I started the game. This is about a girl with a broken heart. I am a straight white male with no issues in life. This is not what I was getting into, right? To all of a sudden you turn it on, you hear Queen Latifah's voice, and you're like, oh snap, Queen Latifah is narrating this game? She's incredible. Music drops, gameplay is fun and addicting, ending is incredible. Awesome experience. It's a must play in my book.
Man, that is an unbelievable amount of stuff that just came out of your mouth that like making me want to do it. So give me like the is there anything close like to compare it to? Is there like one mechanic you're doing the 40 minutes, or is it constantly varied? Like give me the closest thing you've played to it.
It's like Crash Bandicoot and Sonic, where you're running through a level, you're going back and forth, going all through these things. There's sometimes some quick time events, but really it feels like an endless runner. You see the mission in front of you. Okay. You just kind of follow a different map and try to not die in the middle of it all. But I think it's the pop soundtrack. I think it's the message. It's Queen Latifah's voice. It's that setting. Like I said, I highly recommend you read that right, embrace it, and then go into this game. And that's what I did. And it sets a different feeling. It sets a tone for you. Because I've had some people, same exact reaction to me, download the album right after you're done, play it all the time. Wow. To some people who, might be like me, who was like, oh, I play Madden, Gears of War, Halo, this doesn't resonate with me, and then give up halfway through. So I think you got to kind of shed all of your outside world, read that, embrace it, and give it a try, because it's really something special. And the music there, I mean, I downloaded the album immediately after playing it. I haven't stopped playing it a week later. I just keep playing all those songs.
Man, of all the years I've known you, I don't think I've ever heard you talk about a game like this before. And it's if nothing else, just you have to applaud, like you said. It's like the games industry can be so samey after a while, right? All these repeats and, Gears 3, Gears 4, Gears 5, Borderlands 2. It's like everything is a serialized thing. It's amazing to see something that is this different. And I did see some of the reactions that people had on Twitter where it was like, didn't work for me, didn't click for me. And I get that, right? But just being able to kind of have a different, from what you just described, I have no idea going in. It sounds like a headphone, turn off all the lights. I can't wait to see like sort of what made you that emotional, if it was the story or just the vibe of the whole thing. But man, that's is it really just 40 minutes? I mean, it's that fast of an experience?
I beat it in less than an hour. So, I mean, there's it's probably like 12 missions or 12 songs on the album that you play through, and all of them last from 90 seconds to 3 minutes. It's fast, right? It is an endless runner. So there's a set amount of space that you're going to do in this mission, and you're going to finish it right away. So it's quick turn and burn. But the beats, like you said, you want to turn off the lights, you want to put the headphones in, and you want to turn it up and enjoy it, because it's an awesome experience. And like you said, Tom, I mean, coming from me of all people, right? I am the typical normal dude. I play Halo, I play Madden. Nothing really makes me feel anything. I'm just kind of doing it, and I'm juking people. To this game, shattered me, which was so much fun. And it was really cool of like, now I can look at games differently, or now I can play something different that might not be in my wheelhouse anymore, and be like, you know what, I took a chance on this, I'll take a chance on something different.
That's amazing. It can have that kind of reaction, or you can have that kind of reaction to it, man. I have to check it out. Like, it's funny that we have this conversation, because I even going into recording this, I saw you streaming it one night. Like I watched 2 minutes of it and turned it off. Like I didn't, not because you're not great at streaming, but because I was like, what's he playing? And it was like, that's awesome, dude. I can't wait to check it out.
I love it. So let's jump into our final topic of this week right now. Topic number 3 is actually going to come from GameSpot, a very interesting story that I wanted to highlight. We talked about Death Stranding earlier, and guess what? It's going to be about Death Stranding introducing very easy mode for movie fans. So this is from GameSpot.com by Jeremy Winslow. The story reads, as we barrel towards Death Stranding's November 8th launch on PlayStation 4, game director Hideo Kojima confirmed that the action exploration game will feature an additional difficulty mode specifically targeted at film enthusiasts. Kojima tweeted that Death Stranding's very easy difficulty mode was implemented for movie fans to enjoy the experience and appreciate the star-studded cast assembled for the project. Death Stranding playtester and personal assistant of Kojima's confirmed as much, saying that the very easy mode is for, quote, people who usually don't play games, movie fans, or RPG fans, end quote. Conversely, other difficulty modes like normal and hard are designed for action game fans. So, Tom, I thought this was a really fun one. We've seen Super Baby Easy mode in different games, really highlighted, I think, in Doom and Wolfenstein with the fun emoticon. When you click on that, it's him dressed up in a baby, and they kind of make you feel like, oh, you shouldn't do that. But we talked about Death Stranding being so interesting, so weird. We haven't seen much gameplay, but we've seen these incredible cutscenes coming out of the Death Stranding team. And now I want to pose the question to you, with this having a very easy mode more targeted towards movie fans, maybe some of the games that you've played in your past that you would like to have a very easy mode experience on and kind of just enjoy the story or the cast or the cutscenes instead of really going more in depth on a normal and hard mode.
Yeah, man, it's such a weird thing to think about this. And I will, one thing I wanted to, before I answer that question, is when I saw this, it really did make me stop and wonder, as we've all been wondering what the heck this game's going to be. And yeah, we've seen little pieces of it, and it's just such a obtuse thing. Like, I have no idea, which is exciting though. Like, I've gotten to the point that I think I'm excited about. But it did kind of make me, it made me stop and wonder even more. I mean, they really do have some, very, very accomplished actors, actresses, even a little bit that we saw at PAX as far as the performances. And so I get the idea of this, that see Norman Reedus's performance, or, Mads Mikkelsen or any of the great people that they have in it. But it did make me wonder, like, does it actually fit? Meaning, is there anybody? I'll use my wife as a great example. God love her when it comes to video games. She doesn't spend 2 seconds on them, doesn't care. And there's been a bunch of games, if I'm being super honest, that I'm always like trying to pull her in and be like, oh man, you should see this. Like, look at this incredible, graphics or story. Like, look at the realism of it. And I've done it with like Red Dead and different ones. And she could care less. She's like, oh, whatever. Like, so I stopped and I thought about, is this actually going to work? Like, are there people who are going to do this that aren't gamers? If I took him at face value to what he said it's for or what the PR guy said it's for, is there anyone that's actually going to do that? Like, because in order to get into a game like this, you almost kind of have to be a gamer, maybe. And I say that without playing the game or knowing the game. So maybe I'll eat these words in a month after we play it. But it seemed like a really odd thing to put into this because it's like, are they really going to get people that are going to do it? Like, would you do it?
Yes. It's, Tom, I was letting you go on, but I was going to interject and say, I'm 100% going to play Death Stranding in very easy mode because, like you said, after we just watched all those trailers, Tom, and you see this star-studded cast, this doesn't feel like Metal Gear Solid, right? This doesn't feel like the action espionage games that we've played before with him. This feels like something totally different. And after sitting in the theater mode room, right, lights are dark, my feet are up, I'm enjoying myself. The first thing I said walking out is that it's like, shucks, just give me a movie with the cutscenes. I'd rather watch that, you know what I mean?
You may get that anyway. That may be what the game is.
And so we've had some talks. Cristian did a really good job at, like, the question was, a lot of people asked, are we doing anything? Is there really any gameplay? Will we be shooting guns? Is it a third-person shooter? And, Cristian was quick to point out, like, hey, there was that moment where it said no weapons mode in this. So, we'll see what it looks like. But for me, I'm playing this game 100% in super easy mode because I want to enjoy it. I want to take things away from it. I don't want to stress about, dying and having to retry or do something. Yep. Give it to me like that. That's how I want to play this.
Okay. Then I stand corrected. Maybe there would, but you probably would have played it either way. Was my point. Like, I'm wondering if it's going to attract new people who want to do it. So anyway, okay. So we got to wait for Death Stranding, man. This thing, like, I'm so fascinated by what this game's going to be. Like, I'm genuinely fascinated by it. I can't wait to see this. And by the way, I did get a retweet from Hideo Kojima, which is like, when does
Tom's
that
on the
happen?
come up, y'all.
Come on
reaching
now.
greatness, y'all.
My 300 followers. Hideo Kojima retweeted one of my things. Okay, so yeah, there's two games that really came to mind when I thought about this, and not because the games are hard. And I think that was where, if you think about this question, can throw you a little bit. It's like, are you doing it? Would you want to have easy baby mode because the game's tough and there's a lot of good cutscenes, or is it because the game is hard and whatever those parameters are? But the one for me, because I think I'm most fascinated by the world, the story in the game was fantastic as it was. The acting was fantastic as it was, and also had some pseudo-famous actors in it, is Horizon Zero Dawn. Like, that one, to me, I absolutely would see as a movie, because that game is very difficult too, especially on some of the harder difficulties. Like it, and in some ways there was spots when I played that game that did detract from the story a little bit, as I'm like playing Gears 5 now on the hardest level that I can play it on, just the one below Nightmare. So I guess there is a harder one, but it can kind of take away, because like you said, I'm grinding through some spots, I'm replaying them over and over. Horizon did that to me a little bit at the expense of the story, because that story really is pretty special. So that was my first one. And then my second one, and then I'll shut up, is I think Mass Effect would be fantastic for this. And I know that that's a hard one because you're making choices that sort of dictate the outcome of a particular character's arc or a scene or whatever it may be. But if you could somehow, take one of the paths and make a movie out of it, or have an easy mode where you could kind of skip a lot of the combat just to get to the character. Let's face it, there's no better character development, or it probably shouldn't be that binary. It's one of the best character developments ever in a game. By the end of that series, you're in love with all those characters, or certainly know a lot about them, the races, etc. So to me, it's really Horizon and Mass Effect to be the two that I would pick. What about you?
I like that, Tom, and it's very interesting to hear, Tom right there, of kind of like the semi-open world, a little more gameplay heavy on those games, and I totally agree. For me, I would love to see Horizon Zero Dawn. very similar to that. Because for me, I don't have that much time to invest into a 100-hour RPG open world. I want to go. I want to hear the story. I want to see what's up with those robot dinosaurs, and I want to get out. So I could be all over that. For me, I would put down The Order 1886 and The Last of Us. You know, you and I talked about The Last of Us beforehand. And these are games, and it's funny you brought that up, like, who is this super easy mode attracting, right? And I think of people like my mother, who played nonstop hours of N64 with me and my little brother. She does like video games. She does not play video games because A, she doesn't have that much time, or maybe B, she finds them difficult. I also think of some of my older girlfriends who were like, hey, this looks cool. I would play that with you. And then I'd hand them the controller and they would be destroyed, right? And so I think these modes attract people in where I could look at my mom or old girlfriend and be like, hey, like, grab this controller. I'm going to put it on super easy mode. This is a really vibrant, colorful, beautiful world that they've created from The Order, The Last of Us. Hideo Kojima wants to tell you this crazy story. I think we can do this together, or you could do this alone. And I think that's the selling point that I really like getting behind, especially when we talk about these grindy games where almost you have to grind to be a certain HP or attack damage, and you have to do it over and over again. That's where you start to lose people that are kind of on, like, you know, the common or entry level to video gaming. I think this is a great idea, especially for a game like this. So I'm sold on that. Those would be my two, Tom.
Let me throw something at you, though, because this will be a funny comment for Kojima fans is, are you even going to understand it anyway? So the weird thing about doing a movie mode is you would hope you would make it's a compelling story that everybody could follow, so that if I did bring my wife in to watch, if I showed my wife Metal Gear Solid 3, like, you could watch that 1,000 times and you don't even know what the hell the story was. So I pray that there is actually a story in Death Stranding that's you can follow, that's relatable, that would make it this type of experience, and not just so crazy that you're like, I have no clue what I'm watching, because it's like so out there. But man,
it's gonna be fun to find out in November.
That's good, man, right around the corner. And I think it went gold like today. I saw a thing and watched him, and man, he's what did somebody said? I think it was Gary Whitta that put out the Gary Komima when he said, like, I'm the director, I'm the producer, I'm the art director, I'm the caterer, I'm the janitor. Like, I did everything for this game. It's like, here we go, man. Here we go.
I love it. Well, that is right around the corner. And guess what? This will now conclude episode 4 of the HypeCast, your weekly gaming-focused podcast with your boys SnowBikeMike and Tom Bock. We had a blast giving you our PAX experiences. PAX West, truly a delight, and it was a big thank you to Tom Bock. He made it all happen. Big thank you to Kinda Funny and Greg Miller for allowing me to live out an experience of a lifetime, like Tom said, to be able to co-host that panel. Big shout out to What's Good Games and OK Beast to see them and everybody involved. We talked about some of the games we're playing from Control and Sayonara Wild Hearts. Go check them out, because those are going to be some 2 big Game of the Year discussions, whether they be on the indie side or the AAA side. And then rounding it out, what games would you play in super easy mode to be more of a film enthusiast or a movie enthusiast, or maybe just a beginner noob gamer? Let us know down in the comment section below. We'll be back next week. For myself and Tom, thank you so much for watching and listening. We'll see you next week for another HypeCast.
Peace.